The Lofts Rio Salado is located at Curry and Mill Avenue. The apartment complex is for college student living, young professionals traveling with work, and growing families. Built in 2006, the complex has 466 units, resort-style amenities, reserved underground parking, and offers 1 to 3 bed and 1 to 2 bath loft plans.
The assets of the lofts at Rio Salado are the residents, employees, property, which includes finances, credit, records, location, and history, furniture, personal belongings, household appliances, pets, and electronics that belong to the residents and the property, such as TVs, laptops, and phones. As we discuss the assets of the lofts, we then begin to analyze the strengths and weaknesses when it came to security of the property.
We've categorized their assets into 3 different groups. The residents are the most important assets, including themselves and their personal belongings like pets or electronics. The employees' assets would be themselves and their personal belongings. The lofts at Rio Salado need to keep their employees safe so that they can maintain and manage the building in order to keep the residents safe. Thirdly, the property assets would consist of amenity areas, garage, finances, credit, records, location, and history.
The security strengths of the property to consider are as follows. It is a gated community with secured access points, of keycard access to buildings and gates, and deadbolts for extra security on each individual apartment. The layout makes theft of large items difficult to steal, and there is a company backup server in order to back up all of the personal information of the employees and the residents. In comparison, the security weaknesses are that the company assets are more important than the residents' assets. In further elaboration, the company limits responsibility to their own property and assets and requires residents to be responsible for their property and for the knowledge of emergency procedures. Also, the gate security system is not foolproof. One can simply prop open the gate, which would allow access to anyone around in the area. Furthermore, the gates for the garage may be hindered if a vehicle following another is close enough to deter the gate from closing prior to entering. Once we discussed the strengths and weaknesses in the security of the property, we then determined the potential security threats, which are as follows: identity theft, acts of terror, burglary, and vandalism. As seen in the photos on the right, vandalism is a very probable threat. This act of property damage is in result to the roof access not being locked or secured or actively watched. So how is it that we are able to protect the users of this property? We must enforce a strong security plan. There are 6 key points to utilize in order to assure safety and security of the apartment complex. The first being a security or patrol implementation. The second being access point security cameras for monitoring, along with placing personal alarm systems in each individual unit for residences to set. Key fob systems will be utilized to avoid additional key duplication, gated community to enhance security, and protective screens added to the windows and glass doors to prevent break-in and burglary. Not only is the security of the property vital, but we must take into account natural disasters. A few of the strengths of disaster prevention and response are non-enclosed hallways throughout the entire property. Fire systems are in place for audio-visual warnings and suppression, such as sprinklers, fire extinguishers, and alarms in every apartment and along the hallways. Also, there is a sister apartment for temporary refuge if needed.
Additional strengths in disaster response are fire extinguishers located throughout the hallways, fire hydrants on the property, and in case of flood, the pool area has an overflow drain to prevent any damage to the surrounding areas. Though there are strengths for disaster response, there are weaknesses that also need to be considered. The staff is not required to know CPR or any medical emergency procedures. Also, as we walked the property to become familiar with the complex, we noticed a lack of egress maps for escape. 3 of the most likely disaster threats that we determined are fire, flooding, and earthquake. In order to guarantee the safety of the residents and users of the property, we derived a disaster plan which includes the following: fire drills, which are to teach the residents of emergency egress plans, routine extinguisher and system testing throughout the entire property, posted means of egress for residents to easily view, a sister complex for temporary relocation, and nearby emergency first responders for quick relief. As specified in the disaster plan and response, there are 4 major first responders that are in the vicinity, 2 being fire stations, 1 the Tempe Police Department headquarters, and lastly, the Tempe St. Luke's Hospital. Overall, the lofts is a relatively safe place for its users. The specific security methods put in place are to reassure the safety of the residents of the lofts, as well as the vital information held within the front office. In the event of a natural disaster, the lofts would exhaust all of their resources to provide housing for their residents, but they are not liable for their well-being when it comes to security. The lofts could benefit with an evacuation plan in case of disaster. The location of the apartment complex is vitally placed within 5 miles of any emergency service necessary.